I think for us to be healthy people, we have to have an understanding of healthy proximity with different people and where they fall in that proximity.
Welcome to the Grace Marriage Podcast. I'm Brad Rhodes.
And I'm Marilyn Rhodes. We're here to help you build a marriage that's stronger, more connected, and full of grace.
I'm Rick Dayton, joining Brad and Marilyn as we bring you weekly conversations designed to inspire and equip you to live intentionally in your marriage.
We'll share practical tips, powerful stories, and strategies to help you and your spouse grow closer and thrive together.
So whether you're just starting out or have been married for years, there's always room to grow. Let's do this together. This is the Grace Marriage Podcast.
Well, Debra, welcome to the podcast. We really appreciate you being on. Again, I just really appreciate how you make people primary, and Debra writes about it, but she practices it. Our ministry's been fortunate to call Debra a friend, even if we are both so busy we don't see each other very often. But I really appreciate you, Debra, and thanks for being on the podcast.
It's always a privilege to be with you.
Well, let's dive back more into the people skills thing, because we're in a society that has a lot of distractions with cell phones, productivity focused. I mean, how do you counsel people? How, in this age, how do you grow in depth of relationship with friends and with your spouse?
Yeah. I find myself often saying, especially in my counseling clients, in counseling, it is not a lack of love. It's often a lack of skill. And the skill set that we haven't really been taught of how to make the most of our interactions and how to take ownership of how we're coming across in relationships. And it's a really important part to becoming a healthy person, because our relationships are only as strong as our skills. And most of us come into this life, whether from a faith background or not, and we only learn a couple skills. Think about it. Say please, say thank you, and say sorry, and those are like the extent of what we learn. So many of these people skills that people are assuming, I'm pretty good with people, I'm a good conversationalist. Once we actually get into the nitty gritty, they realize, wow, there's so many things here that I've never been taught.
Yeah, and one skill that I've seen is the skill of pursuit. It's just, there's something powerful in relational pursuit. Like when I call my daughters, or when I check in on Marilyn, when I text Marilyn, a lot of us are really busy and they have a lot going on and they're very distracted. How would you advise people to pursue relationship? And because a whole lot of people you can pursue, but so that the people closest to you feel like you really desire them.
Yeah. Another word is intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
And being intentional with the relationships that God has called you to. And I think that phrase is the most important part of this equation. The relationships God has called you to. How do you even know what those are? And one practice that I have people do in people skills is to create 3 circles. So the first circle is your inner circle. It's your core group. It's the people that are closest to you, that know everything about you, that you feel like you can be the safest and most vulnerable with. And write down a couple names. Put down their initials, if you'd prefer. And just really pray over, who are the people in my inner circle? And then the next group are your friends. And those are the people that you're close to, you have one-on-one relationship with, but maybe they're not as intimate in the sense that they don't know everything about you and you don't feel completely comfortable sharing every aspect of who you are, but they have a fairly large portion. And then the third group are your acquaintances. Those are the people that you don't have one-to-one relationships with, but maybe you see them at work, or you see them at a neighborhood gathering or a family event. And so they're your level 3 friends. And to me, the closer someone has access to level 1, the more investment and engagement I can offer them, the more access they have to me. Whereas the people that are further away, the less access and engagement that I feel called to. I think some of the problem comes when we put all people on the same level and it's not sustainable. we find ourselves burnt out or just neglecting all of our relationships. So I think for us to be healthy people, we have to have an understanding of healthy proximity with different people and where they fall in that proximity. Now, I'm not suggesting you tell everybody, oh, you're a level 3 friend, so that means I can't make time for you this week. But I do think it's important for us to have that awareness internally so that we can gauge where we're supposed to invest and where we're not supposed to invest.
And would you say that because people don't make distinctions, oftentimes people have no level 1 friends?
Very much so.
And become very isolated unintentionally?
Very much so.
Because a lot of relationships, but not a lot of helpful, deep, intimate relationships that help people through life.
Your social map, those 3 circles, will help you learn a lot about yourself, because maybe you'll draw your map and you'll realize you have a whole lot of people in level 3, but very few people in level 1, if anyone at all. Maybe you'll see a lot of people in level 2, but nobody in level 1. You know, maybe you'll realize that you have too many people in level 1, and that's why you're constantly burnt out and feeling like you cannot keep up with your relationship. So it kind of helps give you an assessment of who you are, where you're at, where you need to work, you know, where you need to pull back. I think it can be a really good visual.
Yeah. And how many people would you recommend be in level 1? You know, because I'm thinking, you know, it's like, I probably have too many level 1s, you know, as you're saying it. How many people do you keep in that level 1?
I would say it will shift based on the season of life that you're in. I mean, I think about when I was in my 20s and I was a college student in graduate school. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. My level 1 had a little bit more capacity for more. Whereas now, as a wife and a mom of 4 and, you know, invested in ministry right now, my capacity for level 1 is a little bit less. So now in this season of life, it looks like 2 to 5 people at the most. Whereas maybe in a different season, I could have, you know, 5 to 8 or even up to 10 people in that level 1. So I do think it adjusts based on the demand of the season that you're in.
And so I remember I read one book and it said, if you write down 5 names and just intentionally cultivate those 5 friendships throughout the year, it will increase your relational and emotional health. And I think it's probably consistent with what you're saying is you don't be so wide in friendship that you have no depth in friendship.
Yeah. And depth in friendship is really what helps you sharpen your people skills. You know, just having to work through hard things, having to navigate conflict and talk about something that hurt your feelings or bothered you or an issue that needs to be resolved, or taking ownership, confession, vulnerability, listening. If everybody is a level 3 friend, you have no need for good people skills in that regard. And you can keep people at a distance, but that doesn't make for healthy relationships. So it is important to take inventory and see where God might be calling you to put a level 2 person into level 1. You know, maybe there's somebody there that you just need to invest in a little more.
How do you recommend people choosing their level 1s? Like, you know, because a lot of our listeners will be thinking, well, I've got a lot of friends, but I don't know if I have level 1s. How do you discern?
I think 2 words come to mind: prayer and patterns. So number 1, prayer, seeking God's voice, seeking the Holy Spirit for counsel, like who would you want me to invest in this way? But 2, you're looking for patterns of give and take. You can't have a level friend 1 who just takes and never gives, because that becomes unbalanced very quickly. So you want to look for patterns of trust, patterns of responsibility, patterns of health for you to bring them into your level 1.
And should I guess I don't think I know the answer to this, but your spouse being your level 1 friend, your number one inner friend would be your spouse, I would presume.
I would agree with that. And I think with the caveat that your spouse can't necessarily be all things to you. And that's why community is so important. I think your spouse has a huge role in your life. But the beauty of level one friends is that each person has a different role for different reasons. And so it's important to have your spouse and a few other people in level one. I think sometimes it concerns me when people will say, well, my spouse is my level one, and that's the only person that I need. And I just don't know that that's a healthy mindset when it comes to friends. Obviously, opposite sex friends are not what we're talking about. I'm talking about same sex friends, having my husband as one of my core, but also a couple really close girlfriends who can sharpen, challenge me, and be there for me in different ways as well.
Yeah, it seems that if your spouse was your only level one friend, it would put way too much pressure on the marriage relationship. And probably more
way
pressure.
Too much pressure.
Yeah, more than it could bear, because
exactly.
It could really create an atmosphere for codependence.
I would agree with that 100%.
So, and that's why when folks say, well, we're never apart, we're never away from each other, we're never this, and it sounds good, but sometimes it can be concerning.
Right.
So, well, that's really good. So as you pick your level one friends, so you want to find out people that it's mutual, where you're giving and taking.
Right.
And you limit it to 3 to 5 people, but it can be bigger if you're bigger in seasons.
Right.
Now, how do you develop level one friends? Like say one of our listeners did with my spouse, a level one friend, these other 3 guys are level one friends or gals, depending on who's listening. What's the best way to develop them and to continue to make sure that, because you see so many friendships either stay shallow or they just kind of come and go.
Yeah, I know. It's true. Back to the word intentionality and an investment. Once you've decided who's your level one friend, it's easier to be intentional with the time that you have. Mm-hmm. And you're intentional with your time, you're intentional with your energy, and you're intentional with your emotional investment. And time and energy are obvious, making sure that you're actually committing time in your day, in your week, in your month to get together, to nurture that relationship. But I also think energy and emotional investment matters too, in having conversations that you might not typically have. One thing I talk about in people skills is how there's different levels of communication. And the deeper that you go in levels, the more intimate your relationship becomes. So the first level is basic, and it's facts. The most superficial level of conversation is your facts. What's going on today? Where are you going? What's the weather like? Who's playing tonight in the game? And we are comfortable having facts conversations with strangers because it doesn't require much of who you are. The next level takes you a little deeper, and it's your opinions and ideas. That requires me to share a little bit more about me, my opinion about this topic or theme, my ideas. It's attached to my identity a little bit more, and it requires more vulnerability. And then the third level is your feelings. It's 100% attached to who you are, because it's about what you're feeling and experiencing. I feel hurt. I feel inadequate. I feel frustrated. I feel stressed out. That's a lot more of who you are, and it takes you deeper in relationship. And then if I had to add a fourth level, it would be our faith. And not just faith with the facts of like this Bible verse or that Bible verse, but more of my experience with God, my walk with the Lord, my relational interaction with God, because that is a very intimate part of who you are. To be intentional about sharing that with different people invites them into some of the deepest parts of your heart. And so thinking about those different levels and how you're engaging with people, even in marriage, sometimes I go through these levels and people are like, well, I'm not even comfortable talking to my spouse in level 3 and level 4 because I never learned. That's not how we grew up. So a lot of this takes intentionality and unlearning old patterns to learn new patterns.
In protecting of marriage, would you agree that you want to keep level one friends same gender?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Because it can be pretty dangerous when you have a level one friend of an opposite gender. It can create some emotional connections that can definitely cross lines.
Yes, I would totally agree with that. That when it comes to level one core friends, they should be same-sex friendships.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's really helpful. It gives you a good grid too when you're like today, I've kind of subconsciously done what you've said. And so I was free for lunch. So the person that I invited was somebody that I want to be a level one,
Right.
as opposed to just more random where I might have lunch with a different person each week for 30 weeks. Compare that to having lunch with the same person 15 times. One creates meaning and depth. The other doesn't create much, but just entertainment.
Exactly. And this is where, what we talked about, prayer and patterns, is important, because let's just say I'm the one that's always initiating with this friend, and, it's hit or miss, and they're not necessarily taking the invitation, or, sometimes they come, sometimes they don't, or maybe they never invite me to do anything back. I think patterns matter, because as you're investing, you want to invest in level one friendships with people who are also willing to invest in you in that way as well. And if that's not how it is, if that's not how it's working out, it's okay to decide, okay, then this friendship is better for a level two. And I'll invest in somebody who is just as interested and intentional in a level one commitment when it comes to friendship.
And I guess level one friends can change over the years as well, depending on.
They have to. They're going to have to in different seasons of life, and different proximity, different time, different energy, different investments. They will change. It's a fluid thing. So it is important for us in different seasons to take inventory. And sometimes you decide, maybe somebody moves away and they're not able to be as intentional as they used to be. It's okay to decrease your expectations and also decrease your investment. That's totally okay. And it's part of living in Christian community and the ebbs and flows of relationships. But I do think it's important for us to have a healthy understanding and good communication when those things happen.
Well, Debra, as always, you've been extremely helpful. I'm always benefited when we talk, and I know everybody that's listening to you. If you could just kind of let our listeners know where they can find your resources, and just tell us a little bit more where they can find your book.
Yeah, People Skills is a book about 31 different skills that will help you in your interpersonal relationships, and you can find it anywhere books are sold. You can learn more about me at Debra Fileta, Fileta.com, and also on Instagram.
Debra, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the Grace Marriage Podcast. We really hope you're feeling inspired to take intentional steps to grow in your marriage.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Your support helps us spread the message of grace and reach even more couples.
And if you have a moment, please leave us a review. Your feedback means a lot to us and helps others discover the podcast.
To learn more about how you can grow in your marriage, visit us at gracemarriage.com. Keep building stronger, grace-filled marriages.
We'll see you next week on the Grace Marriage Podcast. Until then, keep growing in grace.